A person out in the open ocean can neither run from predators nor fight them off. He has no armor, no fangs, no speed. He splashes at the surface and gives his position away for miles around. Toward him comes an animal that cuts the livers out of great white sharks and strangles whales longer than a passenger jet. 6 tons of muscle and a brain 4 times heavier than his own. It comes close enough that he can see its eye, studies him calmly and carefully, then turns and swims away. In all of recorded history, there is not a single confirmed case of a wild orca killing a human being. In the ocean, she has no enemies and no limits. And yet, across thousands of generations, not one pod has ever started hunting people. The reason is not kindness, and it is not fear. An orca decides what counts as food in a way no other predator on this planet does. People began fearing her long before they began studying her. As early as the 1st century, Pliny the Elder described the orca as an enormous mass of flesh, armed with savage teeth. The fear was ancient and, it must be said, not entirely groundless. People had seen with their own eyes what these animals do to whales. And 1,500 years later, a name was added to the ancient fear. Basque and Spanish whalers, watching that same hunt, called them killers of whales. Crossing into English, the words flipped, and the killer of whales became the killer whale. The hunter of giants had himself become a giant, driven by a thirst for killing. And so, a translation error turned an old fear into a sentence the orca is still serving. The orca is not a whale at all, but a giant dolphin, the largest member of the dolphin family. The scientific name Ortinus orca points to Orcus, the Roman god of the underworld, and there is no exaggeration in that name. A grown male reaches almost 33 feet and weighs around 6 tons, and in a short burst he hits 35 miles an hour. His teeth reach 4 inches, curve inward, and are not built for chewing at all. They are built to seize prey, hold it, and tear it apart. Above his back rises a fin nearly 6.5 feet tall, with not a single bone inside it, only collagen. As long as the animal keeps moving, the water holds that fin up on its own. Even the coloring, which looks far too noticeable for a predator, is in fact camouflage. From above, the black back blends into the darkness of the depths. From below, the white belly dissolves into the lit water, and the pale patches break up the outline and keep prey from judging how big the thing coming at it really is. With a body like that, the orca has spread across the entire planet and lives both under the ice of Antarctica and around tropical reefs, and more than 140 species end up as her prey. A grown animal needs 300 to 450 pounds of meat a day. With an appetite like that, a predator ought to grab whatever comes along. Instead, the orca chooses her prey with extreme care. This is best seen in the way she hunts. Antarctica. A Weddell seal lies on a flat floe where a large predator cannot reach it. Too high to jump, too heavy to tip. The refuge looks flawless. The orcas do not even try to lunge at it. They back off, line up shoulder to shoulder, and start their run. The pod moves in unison, gathering speed, dives under the ice at the last moment, and behind them, a wave rises. It washes over the edge, sweeps the seal into the water, and after that, a few seconds decide everything. This is not strength. It is calculation. The angle of approach, the distance, and the moment of the dive have to line up almost perfectly, because a wave like that cannot be raised alone, and certainly not by accident. The Valdez Peninsula in Argentina. Young sea lions play right at the edge of the surf, where a large predator has no business being. That is exactly where the orca goes. She waits for a wave running toward the shore and rides its crest straight onto dry sand. 6 tons launch out of the water, grab a pup, and haul themselves back with powerful heaves of the whole body, riding the water as it retreats. If the orca misjudges the slope of the beach, she stays on land and dies under her own weight. But the risk is not the point here. This technique is not written into her genes, it is taught. For years, the mothers bring their calves into the shallows, show them the move, cover for them, and let them try it. An orca is not born knowing how to come ashore and how to get back alive. She learns it the way a person learns a trade. In 2017, great white sharks began washing up on the beaches near Gans Bay in South Africa. The bodies were almost untouched, no signs of a long struggle, no pieces bitten away, only one large wound between the pectoral fins and an emptiness inside. Someone had carefully removed the liver from each carcass and left the rest sink. It did not look like a hunt, it looked like surgery. The most dangerous predator in the southern seas was being opened up, relieved of a single organ, and left behind. The culprits were identified. They turned out to be a pair of male orcas that local biologists nicknamed port and starboard. One had a dorsal fin that had collapsed to the left, the other to the right, and those broken crests made them recognizable from a distance. More interesting than the discoveries themselves was the mechanics of their hunt. The great white has a weakness it does not know about. Flip it onto its back, and it falls into tonic immobility. The body goes rigid, movement stops, and breathing stops along with it because the water stops flowing over the gills. That is precisely what the orcas use. They ram the shark in the side at speed, roll it over, and hold it belly up until it stops resisting, then open the abdominal cavity and take the liver. In a large shark, the liver makes up as much as a third of the body weight and is almost entirely fat, which makes it the most calorie-rich organ in the ocean. Everything else, the cartilage and the muscle, is nearly useless to an orca. She takes only what she came for. In February 2023, port and starboard went through 17 7-gill sharks in a single day. Every liver cut out, every body abandoned. On June 18th of that same year, something nobody expected happened off Mossel Bay. Starboard took down a full-grown great white by himself, with no partner and no pod, in roughly 2 minutes. But the most important part came afterward. 14 great whites carrying GPS tags cleared out of the area the instant the orcas appeared, and after each such attack, they stayed away for weeks. Gans Bay, where people had come from all over the world for 15 years to cage dive with great whites, simply emptied out. The great white shark, the animal humanity had appointed the ocean's chief monster, abandoned its own hunting grounds and would not come near them while the orcas were around. For a long time, it was believed that a full-grown large whale was more than an orca could handle. Too big, too strong. Nobody could test the idea because that hunt had simply never been witnessed. In 2019 and 2021, off Bremer Bay in Western Australia, scientists filmed orcas attacking a blue whale about 65 feet long, meaning the largest animal in the history of the Earth, bigger than any dinosaur. The pod did not work like hungry beasts, but like a trained unit. The strongest animals took turns lying across the blowhole, cutting off the victim's air, while others tore at its flanks, and others struck at the head, working their way to the tongue. And each relieved the next, giving the whale no rest and no chance to surface. It was not killed by force. It was suffocated methodically in shifts. After that, it became clear that being the biggest creature on the planet no longer protects an animal from anything. All of this makes the orca the most dangerous animal that has ever lived in the ocean, which makes the thing she never does all the more remarkable. Every year, millions of people go into the water where orcas live. Divers, surfers, swimmers, tourists on boats, fishermen who fall overboard. The animal that can suffocate a blue whale, open up a great white in 2 minutes, and calculate a wave down to the inch swims past them day after day and does not touch a single one. So a person stays alive not because the orca lacks the strength, the speed, or the intelligence. She has all of that in abundance. The reason is something else. The first explanation was found off the Pacific coast of North America, where two entirely different nations of orcas live side by side. The first are called residents. They eat only fish, and almost exclusively salmon. The southern families have narrowed the menu down to a single species. They need Chinook, the largest and fattiest of the Pacific salmon. The second group are called transients or Biggs orcas. These hunt marine mammals, seals, sea lions, dolphins, and whale calves, and they will not touch fish at all. And here is where it gets strange. When the salmon disappear and the residents begin to starve, there are seals all around them. Fat, slow, packed with calories. Exactly the prey that draws the transients into these same waters. The residents do not touch them, not because they could not catch them, and not because they are full. A seal simply is not food to them. It is a moving object, part of the scenery, something not worth turning toward. An orca dying of hunger will pass within a few feet of a seal and keep going, looking for fish that are no longer there. Her mother decided this, and her mother's mother before that. An orca's diet is set not by hunger, but by family. That is exactly why her hunts look so little like one another. A wave raised beneath an ice floe, a charge onto sand for a sea lion pup, herring driven into a ball and stunned with blows of the tail, a liver cut out of a living great white. These are not variations on one instinct. They are different trades, and each one lives only where somebody once invented it and passed it on. An orca is not born a finished predator. She learns from her own family. The most stunning proof came from those same southern residents, the ones that eat nothing but fish. For decades, they have been harassing harbor porpoises, chasing them, tossing them, nudging them with their snouts, and holding them underwater until they stop breathing. Scientists have collected dozens of such episodes, and not one of them did the orcas eat the animal they had killed. Biologists have been watching this behavior for more than 40 years and still cannot explain it. Maybe it is just play. Maybe it is practice for hunting moves that a family of fish-eating orcas has nowhere else to use. Maybe in females who have lost a calf, the maternal instinct kicks in, and they try to nurse someone else's baby without knowing their own strength. But whatever the reason, the conclusion is the same. An orca is capable of killing an animal and still not considering it food. Killing and eating are two different things to her, and that is what it all comes down to. Across thousands of generations, no known orca population has ever created a tradition of hunting humans. No mother has ever shown her calf a person as prey. No pod has ever worked out a way to kill one. Prey to an orca is not a weak animal. Prey is a familiar animal. Without teaching, the hunt simply never begins. The second explanation is hidden in the way an orca sees the world. She sees it with her ears. The ocean is a very dark place. Below 100 feet or so, eyesight barely works, and at night, it does not help at all. So the orca does not rely on her eyes. She sends out clicks, catches the returning echo with her lower jaw, and builds a picture of the world around her from it. How detailed a picture Alaska shows. There, orcas have learned to strip halibut and black cod straight off the long lines of fishing boats. They recognize the sound of a hydraulic winch, a specific machine on a specific vessel, and they hear it from miles away. The pod takes off, arrives first, and cleans out the gear before the fisherman ever lays eyes on his own catch. The echo brings the orca the size of an object, its shape, the density of its body, and the way it moves. On all four counts, a human resembles neither a seal, nor a salmon, nor a dolphin. In his chest are two lungs full of air, and his bones are nowhere near the density of a marine animal's. His body hangs vertically in the water, four limbs thrashing at the surface with no pattern to it. On top of that, he is often wearing a wetsuit, a layer of rubber that exists on no living creature in the ocean. Whatever the orca hears at that moment, it is definitely not food. There is also a third explanation, the simplest one. A human is not worth the trouble. In freezing water, what matters is not meat and not size, but fat, and people carry far too little of it for the hunt to pay off. Except that this logic does not hold up. The great white is lean prey too, all cartilage and muscle, and the orcas attack it anyway. They know that deep inside it hides one single fatty organ, and that is exactly what they go for. An orca is not stopped by unprofitable prey. She is stopped by unfamiliar prey. These explanations do not argue with each other. They add up to one. An orca does not consider a human food because nobody ever taught her to. She hears that what is in front of her is not food before she even gets close. And hunger does not make her rewrite that list, because it is written not by her stomach, but by her family. The human did not win this argument and did not earn any mercy. He is simply not on the menu. All of this could be dismissed as an elegant theory, if not for 3 occasions when orcas came face to face with a human. On September 9, 1972, off Point Sur in California, a surfer named Hans Kretschmer was paddling in murky water, in the surf and the foam, when an orca closed her teeth on his leg. The same teeth that tear a full-grown sea lion apart in seconds. She inflicted a serious wound and immediately let go without dragging the man under and without coming back for him. Kretschmer got himself to shore, survived, and kept the leg. Why the orca stopped after the first bite, nobody understands to this day. The second case happened in August 2005 in Helm Bay, Alaska. An orca swam up to a 12-year-old boy standing in the shallows and bumped him with her shoulder. She could have bitten the child in half. She only touched him and left. The third test people arrange for themselves every winter voluntarily. Herring come into the Norwegian fjords. Hundreds of orcas follow them in, and divers drop straight into the middle of a feeding pod. The hunt unfolds all around them. Dozens of 6-ton predators shoot past at full speed, stunning herring with their tails, the water boiling with fish scales and bubbles. This is the exact moment when any predator stops being choosy. The orcas come right up to the people and scan them with clicks the diver feels in his chest like blows. Then they turn away and go back to the hunt. To them, the human is not prey and not a threat. To them, the human is an obstacle to swim around. Sometimes orcas do things that have no explanation at all. In 2025, a study came out that had gathered around 30 cases over 20 years in different oceans and among different populations. They are all about the same thing: a wild orca bringing a human food. She would swim up to a boat, to a swimmer, or to people on shore, release a fish, a bird, a ray, or a piece of seal from her mouth, and stay there, watching. If the person did not move, the orca would take the offering back, and a minute later, bring it again. What this is, science will not even try to say. Maybe curiosity, maybe play, maybe an attempt to find out how an unfamiliar creature will behave. But one thing is certain, the orca does not merely tell a human apart from food. She tests who he is, and she seems to be trying to work out whether he will accept what she is offering him. So far, we have been talking about the orca that lives her own life and simply does not notice people. But in 2020, off the coast of Spain and Portugal, something began that does not fit that picture. In May, a sailing yacht in the Strait of Gibraltar suddenly lost steering. The crew felt dull thuds against the hull. The rudder stopped responding and orcas were circling the boat. A few weeks later, the same thing happened to another vessel, then a third, and it became clear this was no coincidence. By the fall of 2025, more than 750 such encounters had piled up. 7 boats went to the bottom, the last of them off Peniche in Portugal, where 2 adults and 3 children were pulled from the water. The papers immediately announced that the orcas were taking revenge on humanity and that the ocean was striking back. The truth turned out to be far more interesting than revenge. Only 15 animals break the rudders, and nearly all of them are adolescents. In the entire Iberian population, about 40 orcas remain, and since 2019, it has been listed as critically endangered on the Red List. This is no army of Avengers. It is a handful of youngsters from a family that does not have long itself. Their target is always the same: not the hull, not the sides, not the people on deck, only the rudder. The orcas come up to the boat, lean into the rudder blade, push it, bite it, break it off, and leave. The boat loses steering, sometimes takes on water, sometimes sinks. But everything they do to a piece of machinery, not to people. If the orcas really were out for revenge, they would have the perfect opportunity. When a boat goes down, the crew jumps overboard and ends up in the water, right among the orcas that were tearing at the hull a minute earlier. People flail in life jackets. They shout. They slap at the water with their hands. They are helpless, they are noisy, and they are a few feet from animals, each of which could kill them instantly. In all 700+ incidents, not a single person has been hurt. The orcas sink the boat and do not touch the people falling off it. What drives them is still being argued over. The most popular explanation is fashion. One young orca discovered that a moving rudder churns the water and pushes back against her body, tried it again, and the rest copied her, the way teenagers copy one another. There is a second guess as well. The main prey of the Iberian orcas is Atlantic bluefin tuna, a fast and powerful fish. The orcas wear it down. They ram it in turns until it runs out of strength. A rudder could easily have become a convenient piece of training equipment. There is no single answer, but whatever the reason, the outcome is the same. The human is not part of this game, even at the height of the wildest and most destructive craze in the history of the species. Not one orca has ever crossed that line. Prey, to an orca, is not a weak animal. Prey is a familiar animal, and a human in a life jacket does not belong to a single hunting tradition on this planet. Everything said so far applies to the wild orca, the one that lives in the ocean, in her family, with her own language and her own trade. But all of it stops working in one single place. Orcas have killed people 4 times, and every time it happened in a pool. And the main thing has to be said right away, because nothing further makes sense without it. Not one orca that killed a human in captivity ever ate him, not once, not a single bite. So it was not about hunting, and it was not about hunger. Even locked in concrete, these animals did not begin to see a person as food. Something else entirely had broken. To understand what, one has to look at what an orca loses when she ends up in a concrete box. The first thing she loses is her hearing. Her world is built on sound. She sees with echo, speaks with echo, recognizes her kin by voice, and finds fish by the way a click bounces off them. In the open ocean, a signal she sends out goes into the darkness and either vanishes entirely or comes back carrying prey, shape, size, distance. In a pool, it always comes back. Smooth concrete and glass throw every click straight back at her, instantly, point blank, with nothing lost. An animal that looks at the world with its ears is locked in alone with its own voice, and it listens to that voice for years. The second thing is family. An orca's identity is assembled out of her pod, out of the dialect, out of her mother, out of the trade she learned, out of the ones she has lived her whole life beside. Marine parks brought animals in from different oceans, with foreign calls, foreign traditions, and foreign food, and locked them together in a pool with nowhere to go. What comes of that is visible on their bodies. Most captive orcas have skin scored with long parallel grooves. Those are the tooth marks of their pool mates. Their own teeth they grind down on the concrete. Out of sheer hopelessness, they chew on the walls and the steel gates until the pulp is exposed, the living tissue inside the tooth. To keep the animal from dying of infection, the tooth has to be drilled regularly for the rest of its life and without anesthetic because the animal has to stay conscious. The third thing is visible at a glance, without any biology at all. That same dorsal fin, the one with no bone inside it, stands upright as long as the animal is moving forward and the water is supporting it from every side. But an orca in a pool barely swims. She lies at the surface for hours, and the collagen begins to sag under its own weight. In adult males in captivity, that 6.5-foot fin collapses to one side virtually every time. The very symbol of this species simply folds over, and it is the first thing every visitor sees, usually with no idea what he is looking at. And the fourth thing is the simplest of all. In the ocean, any fight can be left behind. In a pool, there is nowhere to go. The most famous orca in captivity was a male named Tilikum. He was caught off the coast of Iceland in 1983 when he was about 2 years old and shipped across the ocean. Full grown, he weighed more than 5 tons and became the largest male ever kept in a pool. The problem was that he had to share that pool with 2 females. They were older, they were more aggressive, they bullied him for years, and he could not leave. There was nowhere to separate the animals during the day, so every night Tilikum was herded into a cramped, dark module and locked in there for hours. For his own safety, it went on year after year. Darkness, metal, and not enough room to even turn around. How it all ended is known. Tilikum was involved in the deaths of 3 people. The first happened in 1991, the second in 1999. The third, in 2010, happened in the middle of a show. In front of a full house, he pulled his trainer, Dawn Brancheau, under the water. She knew him better than anyone and loved these animals more than anything in the world. There must be no mistake here. Tilikum was not a monster and was not taking revenge on anyone. He was broken. 34 years of concrete darkness and a foreign pod did exactly what they were always going to do. And he was not the only one broken. In December 2009 on Tenerife, another male, Cato, killed his trainer, Alexis Martinez, during a rehearsal for a Christmas show. A different animal, a different country, a different life, and the same outcome. So it was not about Tilikum, it was about the pool. Now it is worth setting the 2 worlds side by side. In the ocean, a human is an irrelevant object to an orca. Not food, not an enemy, not a companion, just an obstruction to swim around. And that is exactly why he stays alive. In a pool, everything is reversed. The human becomes the one who gives food and the one who withholds it, the one who gives commands and the one who punishes mistakes. He fills the entire day down to the last minute, and there is no getting away from him. The wild orca does not touch a human because he is nobody to her. The orca in concrete attacks because he has become somebody to her. They killed us 4 times, and all 4 times we set it up ourselves. One last question remains. Between the orca and the human, there is something like a non-aggression pact. Nobody signed it, nobody wrote it down anywhere, and it has been holding for thousands of years. That pact rests on 2 things, on the orca's brain and on her family. The brain weighs about 13 pounds and is covered in a dense web of folds, and inside it are spindle neurons, the very cells that in humans are responsible for empathy, intuition, and the ability to feel another state. What they are doing in an orca, nobody can yet say. One thing is clear. There is no reason to grow a brain like that if all an animal needs to do is catch fish. In the first weeks of life, a calf memorizes a sound that belongs to her maternal line alone, a short call that exists nowhere else in the ocean. That call will stay with her forever. She will repeat it in the darkness for miles around. I am here, I am one of these, and she will never leave her family. Among resident orcas, sons and daughters stay with their mother until death. They do not go off as adults, do not split away, do not start pods of their own. A 50-year-old male weighing 6 tons still swims beside his mother, and she is the one in charge. Here evolution permits itself something it allows almost nowhere else. A female orca stops giving birth at around 40, but lives another 3 or even 4 decades after that. Menopause is known in humans and in a few species of toothed whales, and in practically nothing else. By the logic of natural selection, a creature that no longer produces offspring ought to disappear. It does not disappear because it acquires a different job. An old female is the memory of the entire pod. Held in her head are the salmon roots, the deep currents, the places where fish hold in a lean season, and the shelters for riding out a storm. She remembers what nobody around her lived through. And this is not a poetic image, but a measurable quantity. Families led by a grandmother survive famine noticeably more often. Scientists recorded the most famous of them as J2. Among themselves, they simply called her Granny. She lived about 80 years and spent half that time not giving birth at all, just leading her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. There is also something in these families that has nothing to do with hunting whatsoever. In 2025, scientists described an unusual ritual for the first time. Orcas tear off lengths of bull kelp and roll them between their bodies. One animal presses the kelp against its side while the other rubs against it, and after a while, they switch roles. There is no practical use in this at all. It is simply a touch that they want, and it is passed from mother to calf exactly the way roots, dialect, and hunting techniques are. On July 24, 2018, a female of the southern residents, known to scientists as J35 and to the rest of the world as Tahlequah, gave birth to a daughter. The little one lived about half an hour. The mother lifted her body, which weighed nearly 400 pounds, laid it across her forehead, and swam. When the dead daughter slid off into the depths, Tahlequah dove after her and pushed her back up to the surface so she could breathe. She carried her dead child for 17 days straight and covered about 1,000 miles with her. The whole time, she barely ate. The pod did not abandon her. Her kin swam alongside the entire way, and most likely, that alone is what kept Tahlequah from dying of exhaustion. In January 2025, it happened again. Her daughter, whom scientists had time to record under the number J61, lived only a few days. Tahlequah did the same thing, lifted the body onto her forehead and swam, dove after it when it slid into the depths, carried it for more than 10 days, this time through freezing winter water. Her kin swam beside her the entire way once again. It is in families like these that everything gets passed down: the language, the roots, the hunting techniques, and the rule about who may be considered food and who may never be. So the non-aggression pact has been honored for thousands of years, and it is the orca who honors it. Nobody signed a truce with her, nobody pays her anything for it, and she has not one reason to spare a defenseless creature that comes into her water on its own. She simply does not consider a human food, and she does not teach that to her children. Now let us look at what the other side has done with those thousands of years. The first thing people did was take the orca's food away. The southern residents will not switch to other prey, even when they are dying of hunger. Their culture will not let them see a seal as food, and there is almost no Chinook left. The rivers are blocked by dams. The spawning grounds are destroyed. The water has grown warmer, and the salmon that fed these families for thousands of years is simply disappearing. And here is where it becomes clear why Tahlequah keeps losing children. Scientists counted how pregnancies end among the southern residents, and the figure turned out to be monstrous. As many as 70% of calves die before birth or immediately after it. The main cause is the shortage of that very fish. A starving female cannot carry a calf to term or nurse it. What the whole world watched as a mother's grief was a symptom of hunger, and that hunger was not arranged by the orcas. The second thing people did was fill their world with noise. An orca lives by hearing. She hunts by hearing. She talks by hearing. She finds her own calf in the darkness by hearing. The drone of cargo ship propellers jams that entire range. To blind this predator, humanity did not even have to come near it. The third was to poison them from the inside. Industrial toxins banned half a century ago have not gone anywhere. They do not break down, they settle into fat. And in orcas, their concentration is among the highest of any animal on the planet. But that is not the worst of it. Everything a female has accumulated in her body over decades, she hands over in her milk to her very first child. One single calf receives a dose the mother spent her whole life collecting. Firstborns are the ones that die most often. And still, this is not the end. The era of the pools is closing. As soon as the public was shown what goes on behind the scenes of the show, orca breeding in captivity was stopped. The performances are being wound down. The laws are tightening. The animals living in the parks today will be the last of them. All it took was telling people the truth, and people changed the way they do things. The dams have started coming down. The largest dam removal projects on the rivers of the West Coast were launched for exactly one purpose: to bring the salmon back. People took the orca's food away, and people are trying to give it back. In the Pacific Northwest lives the Lummi Nation, who have known these animals longer than biology itself has existed. They call the orcas Quilhol Mechen, our relations below the waves, not beasts, not fish, and not monsters. Family. Long before any science, there were two opinions about these animals. Some saw monsters, others saw relatives. The world chose the first. The most dangerous predator in the ocean, the one that suffocates the largest creatures on the planet and opens up great white sharks single-handed, knows how to stop. It stops every single time it sees a human in front of it, and it has been doing this for thousands of years, running, asking nothing in return. And sometimes it swims closer and offers to share its food. We began with the question of why they do not kill us. But the real question is a different one. Will the human learn to stop?